Good afternoon, everyone. The meeting for the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure will now come to order. Can I get the committee secretary to please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Brown May.
Here.
Assemblyman Ellison.
Here.
Assemblyman Levitt.
Here.
Assemblyman Miller.
Here.
Assemblywoman Peters.
Here.
Assemblyman Roberts.
Here.
Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong.
Here.
Assemblyman Watts.
Here.
Assemblyman Wheeler. Assemblyman Yeager.
Here.
Chairman Ro Moreno.
And I am here. I believe Assemblyman Wheeler's running late. If he does arrive, we will mark him present. But absent excused until he does arrive. I thank you all for your patience today. It has been a very hectic day. So thank you for being here. For those who've been waiting patiently for the bill hearing that we will have today, thank you for your patience. Committee, we will have one bill hearing followed by a work session. For the bill hearing, in the interest of time, what we have done all week is have 15 minutes of testimony for support, 15 minutes of opposition, and 15 minutes in neutral. And anyone calling in for public comment or to testify on the bill will have 2 minutes for the testimony. And Committee Secretary, please know that Assemblyman Wheeler has been able to join us. So now that we have all our members present, we will start with our bill hearing. It's Assembly Bill 444, and we have Mr. David Goldwater, who will be presenting the bill. The floor is yours to get the hearing started. And welcome to Growth and Infrastructure.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm David Goldwater, representing Captain, and we're pleased to present Assembly Bill 444. Having worked in the transportation space for a number of years, this bill represents progress in our journey to modernize transportation and provide for the safety and convenience of the riding public. I'm going to share a PowerPoint with you, if you don't mind, as I go through my, all right, here we go. And all right. The bill seeks to accomplish a simple goal, allowing regulated limousines with a certificate of public convenience to accept rides from a TNC with drivers that are employees of the company. Currently, in order to drive for a TNC, drivers need to be independent contractors, and conversely, regulated companies can only use drivers as defined in the statute. While this is why this is progressive is because Captain's unique business model. Captain has the largest fleet of electric vehicles in the country. Captain has a large fleet. Captain has worked with Nevada Energy and the Governor's Office of Economic Development to put Nevada at the forefront of a shift to sustainable transportation that not only utilizes electric vehicles, but also seeks to alleviate congestion by utilizing advanced technology. By passing this bill, riders may someday be able to select a green option from one of the TNCs in their menu. In addition, this bill focuses on the driver, who will now be able to accept ride referrals the same way they receive referrals from a casino or a telephone call when they call to ask for a ride. That driver will not be an independent contractor, but an employee of a regulated carrier with the rights and benefits employees should have, like health care and workers' work comp coverage. My apologies that the president of Captain, Andrew Myers, cannot attend this hearing. We were scheduled before, as you know, and he was called out of town on family business. With me is Jeff Burton, Captain's Chief Administrative Officer. Madam Chair, I'm prepared to walk you through a section by section, or in the interest of time, answer the questions the committee may have.
Thank you so much. I think it would be good to go ahead and walk through section by section.
Okay, let me get that for you. All right. All right. It's the first paragraph is defines a limousine driver. It's a person who has been issued a driver's permit by the NTA or employed under a contract to operate a limousine. Section 3 means a defined motor carrier. Section also further in Section 4 talks about what the limousine service is. As that continues in Section 4. Section 5 talks about the contracting between a TNC and a licensed motor carrier. Section 5 sub 2, contracting between a TNC and a licensed motor carrier. Goes down through Section 5, paragraph 3, a TNC shall not provide connections to potential passengers and related services for periods where the licensed motor carrier has been suspended, so that's easy. We'll go down to Section 6, talks about the fare disclosure. Go up to 5.4 and 5.5. 5.5 is the taxation of the, it seeks to not doubly tax both as a TNC or as an excise under the regulated carrier. Section 5, that's in 5.9, and then paragraph 6, inclusion of other terms, and then some definitional items in paragraph 7. I have sent a summary to all of you, and to those of you who haven't spoken with, you have a summary of the bill available to you. Madam Chair, Jeff and I are available to answer some questions.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions for Mr. Goldwater concerning Assembly Bill 444? I see Mr. Assemblyman Levitt. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. We talked a little bit about this more, and I just thought you could give clarity to the committee. So we tried this once before when I was working at an agency, and the issue arose that to be a TNC driver, you have to be an independent contractor, and but these limo drivers are already employed by a limo company. So how did you reconcile that with the TNCs as they're currently employed by a limo company?
Sure. Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll try to take that. I'm David Goldwater, speaking for the record. That's exactly what the bill attempts to accomplish, is on both sides of the ledger. As a TNC, where you're required to be an independent contractor, and the other side of the ledger, where you're a regulated carrier and you have to use employees. This bill seeks to create a class of driver that can both work for the regulated carrier and then also accept rides from a TNC. Excuse me. Mr. Burton, if you want to clarify further. Or if that answer is sufficient. Assemblyman Levitt.
So I guess my question
David,
is, go ahead. Sorry.
Mr. Burton, are you unmuted? Would you like to respond to the question?
I apologize. I'm unmuted, but I'm getting double feedback from an echo that's coming in.
So if everyone else that's on the Zoom would go ahead and mute their mic, that might help. And if you turn the volume down on your computer, Mr. Burton, that might help. And if that doesn't fix the problem, I have an amazing staff that can help walk you through it.
Fantastic. I apologize.
You're coming through loud and clear. So if you want to add some color to the answer to Assemblyman Levitt's question, go right ahead.
So could you repeat the question?
Well, my question is how did you reconcile the current policy of TNCs to employ independent contractors when you have a limo company that is already employing these, and I'm assuming that they're, even when they're driving TNCs or they're operating as a TNC, they're reporting back to the limo company. And I guess to add on to that question, so you could just answer it all at once, are the TNCs going to be forced to go against their current policy with this legislation? Or are they going to be able to, are they willing now to go against that policy? Maybe you can kind of walk us through that.
So
If I could get you to restate your name for the record. Thank you.
David Goldwater. David Goldwater. The bill seeks to, that's exactly your question. The bill seeks to alleviate exactly that conflict. That is precisely what it means to do. The TNCs originally exist as a platform to refer drivers, just as any hotel does or as picking up the telephone does, to request a driver. They will be happy to refer more rides to whomever will accept, who is able to accept rides. Currently, they can't accept rides, or they can't refer rides to a regulated carrier.
Assemblyman Levitt, did that answer your question? You looked like you didn't get the answer you wanted to hear.
I was just, so the TNCs are seeking this legislation as well? I mean, I just, maybe I'm just misunderstanding what you're saying.
The TNCs, we're partners with the TNCs. So the TNCs will, I can't represent that they're supportive of this legislation, but it's not for, it's not as it's standalone. You can ask the TNCs whether or not they could support this, but in general, they will be Captain's partner in this endeavor. So when you are able to select maybe a green option on one of the TNCs, that would be something that they would have to support.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Assemblywoman Brown May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Goldwater. So that's really where I think I'm going to follow up on that just a little bit. Not being in this industry or having really dealt with this specific issue before, to me it sounds like, and I'm going to use not your company, but Uber has a platform, and I request an Uber Black, and they don't have one available, but my local limousine company does. Now my local limousine company is going to be able to send that Uber Black on that platform. Is that correct? And there is a mutual agreement between the platform, the technological platform, and the limousine company in order to supply that ride.
David Goldwater, Madam Chair, that is exactly what we seek to do with this bill. Exactly. Uber Black and Uber Green. I didn't want to mention a specific company, but that's precisely the service that it would be.
Follow up, Madam Chair.
And Assemblywoman Brown May, David Goldwater again, that would be in an all-electric vehicle.
Oh, okay. So was it specific to only electric vehicle, or would it then allow all of the limousines that are currently in fleet to have an opportunity to respond on that platform?
One more time, Assemblywoman.
You said that, Mr. Goldwater, you said that it would be specific to electric vehicles. Would that be the only vehicle that would be allowed per this legislation, or would it be any limousine vehicle that is in this agreement to be able to respond? So my question really is, if we have limousines that are currently sitting in a limo yard and they're not being utilized, but you have Uber Black that is overextended and that cannot respond, does this legislation enable those limousines that are sitting in a lot for a limo company to respond in kind?
Thank you, Madam Chair. David Goldwater again. Yes, it does. It's not exclusive to electric vehicles. Captain, who is requesting this legislation, is proud of their electric vehicles, and it really, that is the advancement I think we're going to be able to have here.
Thank you, Mr. Goldwater. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Next up, we have Assemblyman Wheeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Goldwater and Mr. Burton, I think Assemblywoman Brown may kind of ask my question, but just to follow it up, have you been in contact with Uber Black and Uber Green and they're okay with this? That's kind of where we're going, I think.
David Goldwater, to Assemblyman Wheeler, yes, they are okay with this. They would have to contract with Captain in order to, or any limousine company in order to do this. Couldn't happen unless they did.
That's what I wanted to get out there in the public. Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Okay,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
seeing none, then we will go to testimony.
Oh, Madam Chair, may I, David Goldwater again. I'm sorry I left out. There's an amendment on your Nellis from Clark County that references the TNC statute and the airport's ability to continue to regulate. We find that a friendly amendment from Mr. Ortiz and would be happy if you would consider it should you see this as favorable legislation.
So could you just expand a little bit more on what the amendment would actually do? I don't see anyone from the county on the Zoom. They may be on the phone to give testimony, but could you just expand a little bit more of exactly why they asked for it and what it would do? The intent.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. David Goldwater again. What I think they're trying to do at the county is, in the TNC statute, there is the ability there's a preemption language that doesn't allow local governments to preempt what the state does at their regulatory level. Additionally, in that preemption statute, there's an exclusion for the airport to be able to do what they need to do, charge fees, request or require permits and licenses and things like that. They reference that statute in this classification to make sure that in this class of driver and in this class of vehicle, that the airport still has dominion over what happens out there.
Okay. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair Monroe Moreno. If I might ask a question directly of Mr. Goldwater, is this amendment by the airport the only place in Nevada revised statute that needs to be revised to deal with this? Because I know sometimes often things are in multiple places. Is this the only place that needs to be amended to allow this? Or do we need to look at other statutes, and could there be a conflict? Because this is kind of happening sort of immediately.
David Goldwater, Madam Chair, through you to Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. This is the only place that needs to be amended for this service to be able to exist in Nevada.
Okay, members, any other questions before we go to testimony in support of Assembly Bill 444? Okay, seeing none, I will ask our broadcast staff to check the phone lines and see if we have anyone in queue who wishes to supply testimony in support of Assembly Bill 444.
To testify in support of Assembly Bill 444, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 459. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last three digits of 459. Please press *6 to unmute.
Yes, this is Mike Sullivan, Sullivan, the Ferraro Group representing Whittlesey Bell and Bell Transportation. We are in full support of AB 444 and would like to go on the record. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next caller.
Chair, we have no more callers in support.
Thank you. Do we have any callers wishing to supply testimony or offer testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 444?
To testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 444, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in opposition.
Thank you. Do we have any callers in the queue to offer testimony in the neutral on Assembly Bill 444?
To testify in neutral on Assembly Bill 444, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in neutral.
Thank you so much. Mr. Goldwater or Mr. Burton, would you like to
This is
have?
Jeff Burton. I'm back in.
And thank you, Madam Chair. We appreciate you and the committee's time today. If we can get on work session, that would be tremendous.
David, this is Jeff. Can you hear me now?
Jeff, you got to hang up now. We're all done.
Mr. Burton, we can hear you. If you have any final comments, you can go ahead and share your comments about this.
Well, I apologize. When David first started, it got caught in a loop where I was hearing his opening remarks. It just kept looping back. So as you guys were asking me questions, I had that going on at the same time, and I couldn't get it cleared out. So I just was with tech, and they just hooked me back in. So I apologize.
That is quite all right. Do you have any other information you'd like to share? And I believe Assemblyman Wheeler has a question for you, Mr. Burton.
Oh, no, actually, Madam Chair, I thought we were done and I was going to make a motion to amend and do pass.
Okay, just hold on one moment. Mr. Burton, did you have anything you wanted to share before we move on?
Unless somebody's got a new question, but I apologize. I couldn't hear any of the questions before because they were being talked over. So if you have any questions for me now, I'm more than happy to be able to answer them.
Members, do you have any questions for Mr. Burton about this policy? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions for you, Mr. Burton. BPS staff, I just received a message from Mr. Ortiz from Clark County. He said that he is waiting to make a comment on the phone lines. Do you see anyone on our phone lines?
Yes, Chair, I can check for you. To make a comment on Assembly Bill 444, please press *9. Chair, I have him now. One moment.
Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits, 241. Please press *6 to unmute. State your name and spell your name for the record. You may begin. Caller, I can see that you are unmuted. You may begin your testimony.
Okay, hello? Hello?
We can hear you now.
All right, great, thank you. I am so sorry. Chairman Raul Moreno, and members of the Assembly Growth and Infrastructure Committee. My name is Alex Ortiz, ALEXORTIZ, representing Clark County. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. And again, I do apologize for the technical difficulties on my end, trying to get through on this and not being on video as well today. Clark County is neutral on this bill, but we did propose an amendment that Mr. Goldwater spoke to, and it is on Ellis as well. I want to thank Mr. Goldwater for accepting our amendment and considering them friendly as well. Our amendment to subsection 1 and 4, as you can see on Nellis, essentially ensured that the agreements between a transportation network company and a limousine motor carrier mirror those of the TNC regulations in 706A.310. So you'll see on the second page those two subsections of Section 5, and where we've added subject to the provisions of NRS 706A.310. That subsection in 706A.310 specifically talks about, like Mr. Goldwater mentioned, the preemption language, but it also talks about in subsection 2, in part, that it requires a TNC or a driver to obtain a local government business license or pay a business license fee. And then it also requires a TNC or a driver to obtain a permit or certification to operate at the airport, pay a fee to operate at the airport, or comply with any other requirement to operate at the airport. And this is also true and the same for taxis, limousine carriers, and the TNCs that operate through the airport. So that said, I just wanted to thank the bill sponsor. I want to thank Mr. Goldwater for accepting our proposed amendment to AB 444 and apologize one last time for the technical difficulties on my end. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry about the technical difficulties, but you were happy you were able to get through. So, members, I am not seeing any other questions from the members. So I know there was a motion, so I will go ahead and entertain that motion so you can say it since I cut you off. Assemblyman Wheeler, go ahead.
Make a motion to amend and do pass, Madam Chair.
Second.
We have first a motion to amend and do pass from Assemblyman Wheeler, a second from Assemblywoman Brown May. And in the interest of time, members, any discussion before we go to the vote?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I'm going to vote yes to get it out, but I'm going to reserve my right. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, I'm going to ask you to turn your cameras on, and instead of doing the roll call vote, I'm just going to ask all in favor, say yay.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Goldwater and Mr. Burton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, very much. Thank you, committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 444. On our original agenda for today, there was another bill, Assembly Bill 423. That bill has been pulled. It will not have a hearing today. If you were here for that bill hearing, I am so sorry. We will not be hearing that bill today. And with that, members, I believe I'm hoping you printed or at least pulled up on your computers the work session documents. And we will open our work session starting with Assembly Bill 301, which revises provisions governing the towing of motor vehicles. I will turn things over to our committee policy analyst at this time to discuss the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Katie Seaman, SIEMON, Committee Policy Analyst. Assembly Bill 301 was first heard on March 25th, 2021 before this committee. It requires tow car operators to immediately release a vehicle to its owner's possession at no charge if the tow is from a residential complex for a lack of registration or an expired registration, and the owner is able to provide evidence of valid vehicle registration that predates the tow. The measure requires a private property owner who requests the tow of a vehicle from a residential complex to make reasonable efforts to notify the owner or operator of a vehicle that it may be towed, including by electronic mail address, or telephone. Further, it requires tow car operators to independently verify the registration status of a vehicle before towing the vehicle from a residential complex for lack of registration or expired registration, and retain proof of this verification. If the owner of a vehicle is unable to provide proof of valid registration, this measure sets the maximum fee for removal by tow car at $50 and requires storage charges to accrue only after 48 hours have passed following the vehicle's arrival and registration at a storage place. There have been several amendments proposed by this measure's primary sponsor. Assembly members Sarah Peters, Chandra Summers Armstrong, and Howard Watts III shall be added as non-primary sponsors. In sections 1 and 2, the attached amendment permits vehicle owners to provide proof of current registration status with either a physical or an electronic record. Instead of the $50 maximum fee referenced in section 2 of the bill, the amendment requires the Nevada Transportation Authority, or NTA, to implement a program that will allow vehicle owners facing financial hardship to apply and be granted the ability to pay a reduced tariff rate determined by the NTA to recover their vehicles from a storage yard. The amendment removes from the mandatory provisions of the bill those provisions relating to tows for a lack of registration. Finally, the amendment requires an owner or authorized agent of a residential complex that has assigned or designated parking spaces for certain persons to affix a notice to the door of the residential unit whose assigned or designated parking space is being occupied by the vehicle prior to its removal for an expired registration. A vehicle may not be towed until 5 days after such notices are provided. The amendment proposed by the measure's primary sponsor does not include line 25 of page 4 of the attached amendment. There are no fiscal notes associated with this measure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, at this time, I'll entertain a motion from the committee to amend and do pass.
So moved.
I have a motion from Assemblywoman Peters, a second from Assemblyman Watts. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we will do a group vote. All in favor, say yes.
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 Any opposed? No.
Nay.
Okay.
Would you raise your hand and so I can count? We have Assemblyman Wheeler and Assemblyman Ellenson. Madam Secretary,
Madam Chair.
were you able, Assembly Summers Armstrong?
Yes, ma'am. I was not able to voice vote. I couldn't get my thing unmuted, but I am affirmative. Yes.
So yes. So we have two members, no, Assemblyman Wheeler and Assemblyman Ellison. All other members of the committee are a yes. The motion passes. And I will assign that floor statement to Assemblyman Miller. And before we move on to our next bill on our work session, I failed to assign the floor statement for Assembly Bill 444. I will assign that floor statement to Assemblyman Wheeler. The next bill on our work session is Assembly Bill 349. And 349 revises provisions governing motor vehicles. I'll invite our committee policy analyst to discuss the measure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Katie Seaman, Committee Policy Analyst. Assembly Bill 349 provides that any vehicle which has been issued a special license plate and registration as an old-timer vehicle, street rod, classic rod, or classic vehicle must not be used for general transportation and may only be used for club activities, exhibitions, tours, parades, or similar activities, or other uses necessary for the operation and maintenance of the vehicle. And they must be covered by either an endorsement or insurance that is designed or designated specifically for classic or antique vehicles. On an annual basis, owners of such vehicles must pay a fee to the Department of Motor Vehicles, or DMV, in an amount equal to the cost of a form certifying compliance with emission standards, to be accounted for in the pollution control account. Assembly Bill 349 amends existing law to require the regulations adopted by the DMV and the State Environmental Commission of the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources to allow both types of licensed exhaust emissions inspectors to work at any authorized inspection stations, authorized stations, or any class of fleet stations or multiple locations of such stations. The measure authorizes the DMV to establish remote emission sensing systems to test vehicles driven along highways in counties with populations of 100,000 or more. The DMV shall enact regulations to carry out the remote sensing system, determine participation requirements and fees, and provide for data collection, use, and sharing with other state agencies. The measure exempts new motor vehicles from emission testing until the 5th registration of the vehicle or during the first 4 years of the life of the motor vehicle, and requires annual emissions testing after the 5th registration. Section 9 of AB 349 makes a technical change to reference a federal regulation relating to the exemption to emissions testing afforded to hybrid electric vehicles. This bill prevents the State Environmental Commission from issuing a waiver of compliance with vehicle emission standards if a vehicle is repaired by its owner and defines such repair efforts. Finally, AB 349 increases fees for license renewals and forms for authorized inspection stations, authorized stations, or fleet stations. There has been one conceptual amendment provided by the bill sponsor that proposes to strike Section 2 and amend subsection 10 of Sections 1, subsection 11 of Section 3, and subsection 11 of Section 4 to read, quote, as used in this section, general transportation means a vehicle that is driven more than 5,000 miles during the immediately preceding year or used in any capacity for commercial purposes, end quote. The amendment makes changes to subsection 2, of Nevada Revised Statutes 445B.767 to have the DMV collect a fee equal to the fee for a form certifying emissions control compliance. Subsection 3 of Section 9 will exempt new vehicles from emissions testing until their 4th registration instead of 5th, and the language proposed in subsection 4 of Section 9 shall read at the beginning, quote, the Commission shall provide a waiver, end quote. In Section 10, the annual station license fee is now $100, and the form certifying emission control compliance is now $8.50. Nevada Revised Statutes Section 482.2655 is retained in this amendment, and the effective dates of AB 349 are changed to January 1, 2022 for the provisions of Section 10, and January 1, 2023 for Sections 1, 3, and 4. The measure requires a 2/3 majority vote. There have been 2 fiscal notes received for AB 349. The Division of Environmental Protection within the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources has determined there is no fiscal impact. The Pollution Control Unit within the Compliance Enforcement Division of the DMV has provided a fiscal note indicating that as introduced, AB 349 would result in increased revenue over the upcoming biennium. However, it notes that this assumes that current workload may be absorbed by existing staff. If additional staff are required to facilitate programming under this measure, additional funds may be required. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the explanation of this bill. I'm sorry for the length of it. Members, at this time, I'll entertain a motion from the committee to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 349.
So moved.
I have a first from Assemblyman Miller and the second.
Or Peters.
Assemblywoman Peters seconds the motion. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none. Members, all in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Any in opposition, oppose the motion? No.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you raise your hand and I will call you out for the committee secretary? We have
All right.
Assemblyman Levitt is a no. Assemblyman Roberts is a no. Assemblyman Wheeler is a no. And Assemblyman Ellenson is a no.
I got two hands. Does that vote twice?
That doesn't count here today. No, I'm so sorry. So with that vote count, the motion does pass. And I will assign the floor statement to Assemblyman Watts. All right, moving on to our next item on our work session. Assembly Bill 379, which revises provisions governing license plates decal. Now invite our committee policy analyst to discuss that measure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Katie Seaman, Committee Policy Analyst. Assembly Bill 379 was first heard before this committee on April 1st, 2021. It removes any authorization or requirement in law for the Department of Motor Vehicles, or DMV, to issue license plate registration decals, stickers, and tabs, and any requirement for owners of vehicles registered in Nevada to display license plate registration decals, stickers, or tabs. There has been one amendment submitted by the measure's sponsor, which repeals the bill text as introduced with the exception of Section 2. Additionally, the amendment would require the department to adopt regulations which would allow short-term lessors to issue license plates for their vehicles. There has been one unsolicited fiscal note received from the Office of Project Management within the DMV related to the measure as introduced. As the fiscal note is dependent on the elimination of registration decals and the amendment submitted repeals the language, this fiscal note would no longer apply after amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass.
So moved.
And who made the motion?
Sorry, Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you. I have a first from Assemblywoman Peters. Can I get a second?
Assemblyman Watts.
A second from Assemblyman Watts. Any discussion on the motion?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So in the hearing, I was initially supportive, as I did some research out of the 3 states that do not have stickers, or at least one of the states, was Pennsylvania, that switched in 2017. As a result of the change, they lost $51 million of revenue, and they are now switching back. They just passed a bill this spring. So out of concerns for the loss of revenue, I won't be supporting this measure today.
And I believe with the amendment that has been made by the sponsor of the bill, the decal part was totally omitted from the bill, but I will let the sponsor of the bill answer that.
Did I miss that? I apologize.
Miller, yes, I believe that was all taken out, sir, by amendment.
Yes, thank you, Assemblyman C.H. Miller. Yes, so the way the bill has pretty much been gutted, and only we're retaining the space that would allow short-term lessors of vehicles to self-plate their vehicles when they get new vehicles. And the reason that this part of the bill has remained is because right now there's a gap that happens when a fleet, when they get new cars, they get this 10-day or the small permit that goes in the front window. So by maintaining this portion of the legislation, it would allow them to immediately put a license plate on the vehicle. So at no point when the vehicle is rented out would someone be subject of a probable cause stop simply because they don't have a license plate. So this was something that I really wanted to hold on to, and I'm grateful that I was able to. So I would appreciate any support I could get on that. Thank you.
You got my support. Thank you very much. I appreciate the explanation. I missed that omission from the work session document.
Assemblyman Ellison?
Yes, ma'am. And I really like the change in that, but we never got the amendment. So I'll go back and check, but I'm going to go ahead and vote yes, but I'll reserve my right because our biggest concern was the sticker, and so I appreciate that, and I will vote yes, and I'll reserve my right till I see the amendment. I haven't seen it. Thank you.
Assemblyman Ellison, if you were able to print up your work session documents, the amendment is on the back side of the work session page for this bill for 379.
There you go.
It's a seriously short measure now.
I will look at it, but thank you. I will get it.
Thank you. So members, we have a motion and it's been second, and we've had discussion. So all in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, and I will give the floor statement on this one to Assemblywoman Peters. Moving on to our next item on our work session. It is Assembly Bill 383, which revises provisions governing the energy efficiency of certain appliances. And I invite our committee policy analyst to discuss the measure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Katie Seaman, Committee Policy Analyst. Assembly Bill 383 was first heard before this committee on March 30th, 2021. It provides for definitions of terms related to the energy efficiency of appliances, and it requires the Director of the Office of Energy within the Office of the Governor to adopt regulations for prescribed minimum standards of energy efficiency for certain appliances and develop methods for testing compliance with these standards. The measure prohibits the sale, lease, rental, or installation of a new appliance that does not meet these standards after certain dates and excludes certain appliances from these requirements. If the Director of the Office of Energy intends to adopt a standard of energy efficiency for an appliance that is more stringent than the energy efficiency standard under federal law, he or she shall seek a waiver of preemption from the Secretary of Energy of the United States Department of Energy. The Director is required to adopt regulations prescribing the procedures for certifying and labeling appliances, and AB 383 prohibits manufacturers from making appliances available for sale that have not obtained certification from the Director that the appliance meets established energy efficiency standards. The Director is authorized to test appliances for compliance with established energy efficiency standards and conduct periodic compliance inspections of the premises of manufacturers, distributors, retailers, and installers of new appliances and newly constructed buildings containing new appliances. The Director shall investigate complaints of alleged violations of the provisions of AB 383. The measure establishes a civil penalty for violations and authorizes the Attorney General to institute civil action for violations. The Director is authorized to adopt regulations and standards for appliances and other provisions to facilitate the deployment of flexible demand technologies. There has been one amendment proposed by the primary sponsor to eliminate Section 33 regarding federal waivers, and it rewrites Section 34 to require manufacturers to provide proof of Energy Star or other certification from their product testing to the Office of Energy to demonstrate compliance, rather than requiring certification to be obtained from the Director. It also removes the prescriptive consultation in the rulemaking process, as well as the Office's ability to independently test appliances and conduct periodic inspections. The amendment also allows, rather than requires, the investigation of complaints and provides that a first-time violation would receive a warning instead of a civil penalty. Finally, it moves the effective date to July 1, 2023 to provide ample time for rulemaking and for manufacturers and others to adjust inventory. There has been one fiscal note received from the Office of Energy describing the fiscal impact on future biennia. The fiscal note was submitted in response to the bill as introduced, and representatives from the Office of Energy stated that they would remove this fiscal note should AB 383 proceed with the amendment proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, at this time, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass.
Vice Chair Watts.
Second.
I have a motion from Assemblyman Watts, a second from Assemblywoman Peters. Any discussion on the motion?
Madam Chair, can I say something real quick?
Yes, Assemblyman Watts, go ahead.
Thank you. Two quick things. I don't know if I sent did not send the latest version of the amendment, but there are some additional tweaks that we're going to have to make. So, and we've also been working a lot with Southern Nevada home builders and other stakeholders to address their concerns. And it looks like some of those might not be in the version that we've got in the work session document. It may have been because I sent this late at night after working on it. So we'll get that fixed, but I just want to let all the members of the committee know that we've been talking with them and local government and building officials, and do have language worked out that addresses their concerns, and I'm committed to making sure that we get all of that incorporated. There was some concern that the Governor's Office of Energy would incorporate the provisions of this bill into the IECC, and that the office indicated that that would not be the case. So I just want to get that on the record, that we appreciate the engagement of different stakeholders in the process, and we are at a point where we can get changes made that address all of the concerns that have been brought up to this point.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for continuing to work with the stakeholders to get the legislation to where everyone can be at a more acceptable, if not happy point. Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the sponsor of the bill working with the folks that had issues with it. I look forward to whatever floor amendment we can get it to a place where we can be. I'll be yes out of the committee today, but obviously I need to see that, so reserving my right in case it doesn't get where we need it to be. But I'll support it moving it today.
Thank you so much. Assemblyman Wheeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I kind of want to say ditto to what my colleague said, but I will be no out of committee, and we'll see if we can get it to where the builders are happy, and we can get it to where we think it's a good bill. And if I do change my vote on the floor, Madam Chair, I will let you know prior.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Assemblyman Levitt.
I'm in the same boat. I'll vote yes out of committee, but until the issues are resolved, I'll reserve my right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Any other
Madam Chair,
yes.
I'm a no vote, but I'm going to reserve my right. And we really had a hard time today with some of the amendments. I don't know what's going on, but several of us hadn't got them. So I'm going to reserve my rights and hope we can get this figured out. Thank you.
Thank you. And as far as the amendment for this one, there was one attached to the work session document, but I believe one of the sponsors of the bill said that he had not submitted his final language, but we will be seeing that on the floor. So with that, members, I don't see anyone else raising a hand for further discussions. I will call for the vote. All in favor of Assembly Bill 383, say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Anyone who is opposed, please say no and raise your hand so that I can advise them.
Nay.
Nay.
That would be Assemblyman Wheeler and Assemblyman Ellison are in the nay. Motion does pass. And I will assign that floor statement to Assemblywoman Brown May.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And with that, we will close that one and move on to the next item on our agenda, which is Assembly Bill 388. And I'll invite our policy analyst to discuss that measure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Katie Seaman, Committee Policy Analyst. Assembly Bill 388 revises provisions governing access to broadband services. It was first heard before this committee on April 8th, 2021. Assembly Bill 388 replaces the definition of broadband service in existing law, includes broadband service within the existing definition of telecommunication, and makes conforming changes. The measure requires the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada, or PUCN, to establish a program to assist persons with low income in obtaining access to broadband services. The program must require certain providers of telephone service to provide a reduction in rates for telephone services to certain low-income customers to ensure access to broadband services for such customers, and must enable providers to be reimbursed the amount of this reduction in rates from the fund to maintain the availability of telephone service. The bill extends the provisions governing certain reductions in rates for the telephone rates to apply to reduction in rates required by this broadband access program. There has been a conceptual amendment received by the measure's sponsor that would require the Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology, or OSIT, within the Office of the Governor to, number one, establish a grant program to assist in the extension of broadband service to low-income and rural communities funded on an opt-in basis through a voluntary contribution program established by the PUCN. And two, conduct statewide mapping to determine where broadband services do not meet the definition provided for by this measure. And three, create a broadband ready community certification program to encourage local governments to adopt policies that expand broadband infrastructure. There has been one fiscal note received from the PUCN indicating an expense in future biennia, as the measure will require additional staffing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the explanation on the measure and the amendment. Members, with that, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass.
So moved.
Second.
The first was by Assemblywoman Brown May and seconded by Assemblyman Miller. Any discussion on the motion? This was a bill that we heard just last night. Seeing no discussion, then we will ask for the vote. All in favor of Assembly Bill 388, say yes.
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 Or is there anyone who would be a no in opposition? All right. Motion passes unanimously for amend and do pass. And I will assign that floor statement to Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is Assembly Bill 411, which makes changes to provisions governing fuel. And I invite our committee policy analyst to discuss the measure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Katie Seaman, Committee Policy Analyst. Assembly Bill 411 was first heard yesterday before this committee. It requires that the regulations adopted by the State Board of Agriculture within the State Department of Agriculture for motor fuel allow the sale of motor vehicle fuel containing not more than 15% ethanol by volume. There has been one amendment proposed by the bill sponsor that would change the effective date of Section 1 of the bill from January 1, 2022 to July 1, 2022 for all purposes other than the adoption of regulations and other preparatory administrative tasks. There were 2 fiscal notes received for the measure as introduced. If the proposed amendment is adopted, there will be no fiscal notes associated with this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, with that, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 411.
So moved. Watts.
I have a first from Assemblyman Watts. Can I get a second?
Second.
A second from Assemblyman Miller. Any discussion on the motion? This is another provision that we heard last night. Okay. With that, seeing no other discussion, I will ask for a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Is there anyone who opposes? Please say no and raise your hand.
No.
Yes. I'm a no.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know.
No. I'm tired. I'm a no.
I have Assemblyman Wheeler as a no and Assemblyman Ellison as a no. All other members voted in the affirmative to amend do pass, and that motion does carry. I will assign that floor statement to Assemblyman Levitt. Next on our agenda is Assembly Bill 412. And I will ask our policy analyst to discuss that measure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Katie Seaman for the record, Committee Policy Analyst. Assembly Bill 412 revises provisions governing motor vehicles. It was first heard before this committee yesterday, April 8th, 2021. Assembly Bill 412 defines a neighborhood occupantless vehicle as, quote, a low-speed vehicle that is not designed, intended, or marketed for human occupancy, end quote. Operation of such a vehicle on a roadway with a speed limit greater than 35 miles per hour, but less than 45 miles per hour, is in compliance with state law if the operator complies with certain speed restrictions and equipment requirements for motor vehicles. The measure extends certain requirements applicable to drivers of low-speed vehicles to extend to operators of such vehicles and exempts certain autonomous vehicles operated exclusively by an automated driving system from provisions requiring equipment. A fully autonomous vehicle that is exclusively operated by an automated driving system is exempted from requirements for mirrors to reflect to the driver a view of the highway, windshield wipers, equipment to illuminate with multiple beams, and a muffler, unless the vehicle contains an internal combustion engine. There are no fiscal notes associated with this measure, and there have been no amendments proposed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, with that, I will entertain a motion to do pass Assembly Bill 412.
So moved. Steve Yeager.
I have a first from Assemblyman Yeager and a second from Assemblyman Watts. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, just one, ma'am.
Yes.
I believe in these little cars. I think eventually they're going to have a great place in our economy. Right now, there's taxi cab drivers and Uber drivers depend on them to pick up and deliver to a lot of people. With this, I just think it's going to be putting a lot of people out of work. So I'm going to be a no.
Thank you so much for that. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Any in opposition, please say no and raise your hand.
The Long Ranger.
Mr. Ellenson is a no vote. The motion does pass to do pass AB 112, and I will assign that for statement to Assemblyman Roberts. We're almost finished, team, I promise. The next item on our agenda is Assembly Bill 413. And I will ask our policy analyst to discuss this measure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Katie Seaman, Committee Policy Analyst. Assembly Bill 413 requires the Department of Transportation to establish an advisory working group to study certain issues related to transportation during the 2021 through 2022 interim. It was first heard before this committee yesterday, April 8th, 2021. Assembly Bill 413 requires Nevada's Department of Transportation, or NDOT, to establish an advisory working group to study certain issues related to transportation during the upcoming interim. The measure prescribes the membership and duties of the working group and provides for the compensation of its legislative members and the travel and per diem allowance for all working group members. The department shall submit a written report describing the activities, findings, conclusions, and recommendations of the working group for transmittal to the 82nd session of the Nevada Legislature. There are several amendments requested by stakeholders which have been approved by Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe Moreno, Chair of the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. The first eliminates the provision for compensation for legislative members of the working group and the travel and per diem allowance for all members. The second requests the addition of members from local chambers of commerce and the Nevada Resort Association. Based upon an amendment submitted by the department, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno has also requested the following amendments. The working group will have a minimum of 20 and no more than 30 members. The working group will include 3 members who must be appointed from a list of persons recommended by the recommended to the department by organizations and other entities which represent or promote the interests of minority groups in this state. And to the extent practicable, the members of the working group must be representative of the various geographic areas and ethnic groups of the state. There have been 2 fiscal notes submitted for this measure as introduced. The Nevada Department of Transportation determined there was no fiscal impact, while the Legislative Council Bureau was unable to determine a specific fiscal impact. But I would note that that was related to the per diem, travel, and compensation of members. So with amendment, that would likely not be subject to a fiscal note. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass.
So moved, Watts.
Second.
I have a first from Assemblyman Watts, a second from Assemblywoman Peters. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I will ask for the vote. All in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, please say no and raise your hand. The motion passes unanimously, and I will assign that floor statement to Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. Members, believe it or not, we are up to our last item on our agenda for work session, and that is Assembly Bill 429, which establishes provisions governing peer-to-peer car sharing programs. I invite our community policy analyst to discuss the measure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Katie Seaman, Committee Policy Analyst. Assembly Bill 429 was first heard before this committee on April 8th, 2021. It provides for peer-to-peer car sharing programs within law, defines terms relating to these programs, and requires the Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles, or DMV, to adopt regulations to carry out the provisions of law relating to such programs. A person must obtain and renew a license from the DMV before operating a peer-to-peer car sharing program within this state, and the DMV may require that the licensee file a bond or deposit with this application. Such licenses may be refused to be issued, suspended, or revoked by the DMV upon certain grounds, and the measure establishes procedures to review these decisions. The measure provides that peer-to-peer car sharing programs assume liability for certain damages on behalf of shared vehicle owners, and it requires that such programs ensure that both shared vehicle owners and drivers are insured under motor vehicle liability insurance policies meeting certain requirements. Additionally, a program may not accept an individual who does not possess a valid driver's license. If an insurance policy has lapsed or does not meet the requirements in law, the peer-to-peer car sharing program assumes liability for damages up to the required level of coverage, and the measure authorizes an insurer to exclude from the coverage claims afforded under a shared vehicle owner's motor vehicle liability insurance policy. Peer-to-peer car sharing programs are required to make certain disclosures to shared vehicle owners and drivers and to maintain certain records. Nothing within AB 429 is to be construed to impose liability, which is inconsistent with federal law governing vicarious liability for harm found at United States Code, Chapter 49, subsection 30106. Insurers who defend or indemnify certain claims are authorized to seek recovery from motor vehicle insurers of the peer-to-peer car sharing programs in certain circumstances. Peer-to-peer car sharing programs have an insurable interest in a shared vehicle during the time the vehicle is shared under a program and may own and maintain certain types of motor vehicle liability insurance. The bill establishes liability for loss of or damage to equipment placed on a shared vehicle and establishes provisions for safety recalls on shared vehicles. Local government entities are prohibited from imposing additional taxes, fees, or licensing requirements on peer-to-peer car sharing programs or shared vehicle owners, drivers, or vehicles other than what are generally applicable to all businesses. The measure clarifies that sharing a vehicle through a peer-to-peer car sharing program is not considered a lease, and those engaging in such a program do not meet the definition of a short-term lessor within existing law. There has been one proposed amendment which would, number one, alter certain definitions and terms related to peer-to-peer car sharing. Number 2, provide that the peer-to-peer car sharing program's insurable interest in the shared vehicle does not impose a requirement for the program to maintain the insurance coverage, which is required for the shared vehicle. And number 3, an airport is not prohibited from requiring a program to pay a fee to operate at the airport. An additional proposed amendment would, number 1, increase insurance limits for bodily injury or death of one person in any one crash from $25,000 to $50,000. Number 2, increase insurance limits for bodily injury or death of 2 or more persons in any one crash from $50,000 to $100,000. Number 3, revise the record retention period for peer-to-peer car sharing services from 4 to 6 years. Number 4, add claimants alleging damages related to the use of the shared vehicle to the list of persons who can request these records. And number 5, revise language related to airports as provided in the First Amendment. The measure requires a 2/3 majority vote, and there have been 2 fiscal notes received. The Office of Project Management within the DMV estimated staffing costs of approximately $126,734,000 during fiscal year 2021 through 2022, while the Department of Taxation determined there is no fiscal impact from the measure as introduced. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass.
So moved, Watts.
I have a first from Assemblyman Watts, second.
Second, Peters.
A second from Assemblywoman Peters. Any discussion? Assemblyman Yeager, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the sponsors for that second amendment about the insurance coverage. I was a little concerned about that, and I just think we need to make sure if we're operating these sort of things, we have adequate coverage, because when there's not adequate coverage, we as the taxpayers end up footing the bill for that. So just want to thank the sponsors, and I will enthusiastically support the bill.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I'm sure.
Yes, Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you, ma'am. The amendments make it good. I know we'll see this bill again in Ways and Means because the fiscal note. I'll be a yes today to get it out of committee, but reserve my right later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other discussion?
Madam Chair, I'll just ditto on Robert's sentiment.
Thank you, Assemblyman Levitt. All right, members, all in favor to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 429, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed and opposition, please say no and raise your hand.
No.
Assemblyman Ellenson is a no. All other members voted in the affirmative and the motion passes. I will take that floor statement myself. Well, that was the last item on our work session agenda, which takes us up to the last item on our agenda for today, which is public comment. And I will ask our broadcast staff if we have anyone on the line wishing to provide public comment.
To testify with public comments, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public comment line is open and working. However, we have no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Members, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your flexibility this week with all the extra hearings, late nights, but I truly, truly, truly appreciate our staff. I think we were working until 11:30 on a Zoom, and then they stayed up much longer than that. And not just last night, but a few nights this week. So to all of our committee staff, you are amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. For our broadcast staff, you have been key through all of this, getting people connected. You all make us look good as legislators, and we thank you for that. It does not go unacknowledged. We will be standing in recess. We will have another floor session. I do not anticipate that we'll have any other measures coming to our committee. So before we adjourn on the floor, I will adjourn this committee meeting on the floor. But we are in recess until then, and you'll be happy to know, I believe our staff needs a break. We will not have committee next week. So I will see you all on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.